Hello viewers, good evening and welcome to the show. Today we're looking at the economic stimulus and what it should look like to an ordinary Ugandan. And this is actually picked from the State of the Nation address that was given by the President this week. And in that, of course, we saw, because it's coming out of, on the back of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, it's a bit different. It's a different State of the Nation address, or it was a different State of the Nation address, compared to what we are used to. So today we're trying to look at that suggested stimulus package by the President and how it should actually look like to an ordinary Ugandan down there, because the relevance of this is for that package to actually make sense to the Ugandans at the grassroots. Now, I'm Charles Bodge. I'll be your host this evening. And with me, I have two distinguished gentlemen. I have Julius Mukunda from CSBAG. Julius, you're most welcome to the show, as always.
Yeah, good evening, viewers.
Thank you very much. Then we also honored to have Ambassador Phil Idro. Ambassador, you're most welcome to the show.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be with you today again.
Very good.
Ambassador, when you're an ambassador, you're always an ambassador.
An ambassador, always an ambassador.
That is nice.
And he wears many hats. He's actually heading the East Africa Grain Millers Association and Rice Agro-Processors.
Yes.
Quite something loaded, eh?
Thank you.
If you notice, you revisit the State of the Nation address, the President came out quite strongly on the sector of agriculture. He actually tried to do a difference, to define between the vulnerable economy and the real economy. And in the real economy aspect, he seems to actually root for agriculture and industrialization, most of it actually agro-based. So for starters, Julius, let's go into it. This stimulus package that is suggested by the President, of course the background of it is that money going into Uganda Development Bank, the 1 trillion shillings. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, good evening, viewers. I think, but also to say for the COVID-19, I mean, those who are affected, infected, I think we pray that definitely we get out of this. So first of all is that I'm glad that the President came up with the stimulus package, which we have been asking for, I think, from the beginning. And I'm very happy that the President actually articulated the problems very clearly, the real economy versus the vulnerable economy. And I think which is something that all Ugandans we want. And that when you look at his description of the real economy is where every one of us are. Whether you are a farmer, whether you're in the middle class, you find yourself actually in those particular areas. So I'm very happy, for example, that after a long time really pushing for capitalization of Uganda Development Bank, and that all the time I've been giving them piecemeal, 100 billion, 200, we are now coming up with a very huge package of $1 trillion, which was mentioned by the President. And I think for me, this is what we need as a country. Of course, the challenge now is the details. The details. We would really wish to see that this money goes to the...
They say the devil is always in the details.
The devil is in the details. And I'm really very anxious on what the Minister of Finance is going to talk about. We want really to see how this money is going to be used to deal with the real economy that he talked about. But also, I think, like we have talked before, is that this country is driven by the small and medium enterprises in this country. The big boys and girls in this economy, they have so many options they to survive from. I mean, if you say MTN, I mean, if they work in any bank here, nobody will deny them any amount they wish to have. If you tell Total, if you tell, these big boys around, I mean, anywhere they go, they can get money. But this ordinary farmer, this carpenter, for example, really, they can't even have the capacity to work in the nearest branch to get this particular money. I would really implore the decision makers to look at these small and medium enterprises because they contribute more than 80% of our economy. So at this particular moment, yes, I'm excited, I'm happy, but also anxious on the details.
I hear you. Ambassador, this stimulus package, where it's coming from, the background?
Basically, we joined this economy of the world in the middle of so many processes. So most people are lost of the fundamentals. But if you go back and get to know what this really means, it's about two things. And that's what human beings are about. One is material comfort, and the other is mental peace. Everything we go about in the world today is either something to do with material comfort or mental peace. So when you talk of agriculture, when you talk of doctors, when you talk of engineers, all these subscribe to material comforts. It is when you talk about priests and about sheikhs and psychologists and sociologists, politicians, that's when you talk about mental peace. Balancing the equation of how you understand the meanings and how you organize yourselves. So the whole world and humanity is about material processes, which we subscribe mainly to engineers, but even doctors and all these are, and intellectual processes. Now, when you understand those two, it becomes very easy for you to know what these things are about. And in this case, then, you ask yourself, what has Uganda got to offer themselves and the whole world in this area? And it is simple. It's basically technology, which very many types are available for us to choose from. But fundamentally, it is the organization. How do you organize technology to fit in with the raw materials, to give material comfort to your citizens, and to give mental peace to your citizens, and the surplus for the world? Or if not, to be able to make everybody so comfortable out there that they give you so much money that you relax. This is really the whole point. And this is where the president comes to say, yes, the vulnerable economy and the substantive one matters. So in all this, once you understand the natural resources and the human resources available in Uganda, you find we have so much to offer. The problem is we have been joking. And it is joking because, believe you me, my brother, if you see how much money we spend on beer, that is enough to pay for all our education. If you see how much money you spend on the soft drinks, it's enough to pay for all our health. I have not talked of the telephone bills, which we don't really need to, but that would have paid for all the infrastructure. So we are not organizing ourselves as Ugandans. And besides, if I tell you two bad things, we have so many cars, about 1 million something, but we have only 5,000 tractors. Are we an agricultural country seriously saying we want to convert material? And anybody even who has money to buy a tractor will first want to buy a car. So it's not a resource issue, it's an attitude issue. And that's where the problem is. And once that is sorted out, it becomes easier.
Now talking about the sorting out, before I leave the ambassador, you know, there's always a trailblazer in some of these areas.
Yes.
And some people might say maybe leadership in some of these areas. Who should actually lead our people into that kind of thinking? And I want to now bring it down, for instance, to a sector where you sit, you know, because, I mean, you sit within the agriculture sector. How do we get people to now start to see things in 3D, like they say nowadays, and focus on what matters away from what really doesn't matter?
I think the major problem, my brother, here is not only leadership. I think our leaderships have all talked very hard and very well about development issues. But I think there is a pressure of consumerism, which has become so much that we have to give it a special handling. Even our own parents, they get happy when you give them a phone. So is it not that you can't give them an ox plow which costs the same? So when a young man is more happy to get a car than a tractor, then I think you know there's an issue. So Ugandans have gone into what you call outsourcing. The children want the parents to outsource bigger than their fathers and mothers can do. So the father and mother go to the organizations they work, whether it's in government, in company, and they also outsource. They want the company to outsource for them bigger than the company can afford. Then when they're in government, they want to go to Ministry of Finance to outsource, and Ministry of Finance goes to World Bank and IMF to outsource, And when they all fail, they try to get God to give them to outsource these things. This is where the major problem is. So I can tell you, my brother, it is a very big issue. And until we accept that this here is heaven, and you don't have to go to another heaven, because the sun, the water, the weather is here. We just need to work on what we have. So it is much bigger than a leadership function.
I hear you.
Especially when at all levels, people are quarreling so that they can outsource.
I get you.
You get me?
I get you. Moving on. Julius, I'll bring you back in. Of course, we're talking about the vulnerable economy and the real economy. And I think the president quite brought it out quite clearly. Because on the vulnerable side of the economy, he's talking about, you know, the luxury goods of ostentation.
Yeah.
Talking about he actually bundled hospitality industry.
Things that are optional.
Within that. And he was mentioning the figures, for instance, of how much we import, you know, in that particular area. The luxury good, the perfumes, the wigs and all that. And his assertion is that if only we can produce those here and export them, yeah, and save those dollars to do other substantive or support the real economy.
Yes.
From where you sit, I know you've interacted with people in different sectors, and most importantly, the finance people who do the planning for this country. What would you say would be the best way for us to really approach, you know, that particular aspect, which of course was termed, and rightly so, import substitution by the president?
Yes, I think, again, for me is, on that approach, is that we can actually start with the low-hanging fruits.
Okay.
We might not stop people from importing ornaments, you know, these huge, very expensive cars, these, you know, gold and silver, and you know, we might not stop them doing that if they have their money. But there are things we can begin to produce immediately. So two things. One, what can we produce now very quickly that does not require rocket science, that does not require the advanced technology, and help us reduce on the import bill? Because I think that's our number one problem. And what is it that we can begin to also prepare now so that in the next 3-4 years we can be able to produce it? And I think that's where we need to focus right now. That as a country, Uganda, when you look at the, I will give you an example, is that when you look at the import bill of vegetables and oils, and if I go down to pick one, if I say that we import emondi, potatoes, it tells you, even what he was talking about, that we are forgetting that we can do these things and we are going to where they are being produced. I was taken through this emondi story, and it really shocked me that our friends at Caf Javaz, they import these potatoes. KFC also import these potatoes from Kenya and also from Egypt.
And one would wonder why.
And you would wonder why, because I know Kabale, they were good at producing all types of emondi you want in this planet Earth, but also people from Bali. So I was, what is your problem? And they told me, they said, look, your emondi is very nice because it is full of starch. So it's good for mingling, you know, mashed potatoes. But it's not good for chips. Secondly is that the emondi here, they have got so many eyes on them that if you are going to peel them and make chips, you almost reduce 40% of the quantity of emondi. So we want emondi that does not have eyes. I'm like, but we have Naro here. We have the best scientists in the whole world. Why can't they do that? And I get in touch, and they're like, okay, we have them, all these varieties, but we don't have money to educate the masses on how they can use these varieties. In fact, Naro also has got vaccines for antique and the FMD. I'm like, why can't you know we don't have money? So the whole idea is that we have those low-hanging fruits we can start on, and they are there. And then we reduce on the import bill of some of these things. You just can't imagine that the rice from Vietnam comes all the way. I know Ambassador is very good at this. All the way from Vietnam, reaches here. And when Ambassador is going to produce rice, it is more expensive than rice from Vietnam. I always ask Ambassador, what is your problem? Really, how can just transporting it only for heaven's sake? So, and it tells you that the mind state must change. We need a strong investment on quality improvement. If you look at coffee, why it has improved, If you look at dairy, where it has improved, you heard of these wars over dairy. We no longer want milk in jerry cans, in plastics. And people were like, no, we shouldn't have to carry jerry cans. But all the point they were trying to drive was we must improve the quality of our milk. If they find you drying coffee on the bare ground, you are arrested and punished. You must put on polythene bag. All that, they are trying to drive quality. If you hear of UNBS chasing away that this portion is not fit for human consumption, yet me and you have been eating it. It tells you of the post-harvest handling of our work. So these are the low-hanging fruits which we can start on as a country. And it goes back to these things are being done by the small scale and medium enterprises, the farmers. So if we can do that, let me tell you, just within 1 year,
we can turn this thing around.
you can turn this thing around.
Good. Ambassador, let me come to you on this. Of course, you sit in a sector where our low-hanging fruits are, partly. That's largely the agriculture sector. And Julius here raises a very important issue. I mean, I know you're quite passionate about the rice.
I've been following rice and many others.
Subsector. How come? Because, I mean, if rice from Vietnam comes all the way and reaches here and is more competitive than the rice from your members, then it means there's a problem. Where is the problem here? And it means also that we cannot achieve the import substitution we're talking about.
Yeah, you see, the issue is, again, partly an attitude issue.
Yeah.
And it is a very big issue, except the time is not enough to go into all those details. Because what happens here, like with rice, our cost of production by the farmer is high.
Okay.
And if you try to make them become more efficient, they drag their feet a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of what we call liberalization,
Yes.
they have more opportunities to do other things.
Okay.
Now, because also there is a market in Congo, a market in Sudan for things that they don't mind the cost of, if you become hard, they go there. I have seen this myself.
Okay.
So when it is what they call a supplier's market, in that he is the bully, it is different from when it is the buyer's market, where the buyers determine what to do. And it is worse when people in the middle groups, especially those who don't understand it, like my friends in NGOs, who now bring sympathetic voices to say you are cheating the farmers. When they don't realize what's going on, then it puts you in a difficult situation. Okay. I'll give you an example. Maize in Uganda, farmers want to sell it at 1,200 shillings or 1,000. Then they're happy. And they get the support from everybody. But maize in Brazil and Mexico costs only 95 shillings. So they are focusing on growth from efficiency. Here, we want growth by money amount. What has happened? We can't export as much to Kenya because they want to buy from Brazil. To a point that at 1,200, you are actually encouraging the farmers, making them happy. But that is $300. Wheat arrives at Mombasa at $250. By the time it arrives in Kampala, it is $310. Why do you think there is so much consumption of Rolex? Because people find that Rolex much better to eat than the maize as an option. Last year, East Africa imported 3 million tons of wheat because of that. Just because instead of making our farmers more efficient, we are sympathizing with them like spoiling children. Yet they can be very efficient.
I hear you.
Okay? And so these are some of the issues.
But you see, Ambassador,
everybody must come on board
yes,
to discuss this issue so that the farmer can make a profit at that level. The issue is not how much the price is. The issue is how much profit the farmer should get, because that's what he puts in his pocket. So we should work on that concept.
But Ambassador,
Yes.
I just have one thing. You see, you ask the question of leadership.
Yeah.
And I think for me right now, because his explanation is where now I have a problem. What's the problem with our leadership in the agricultural sector to help us really show this? Because you see, I agree with you.
Yes.
Sometimes we become very sympathetic because somebody is has produced his cows, he has been selling milk at 1,000, the liter is now at 200,000. You just wonder what is happening.
Because actually, that's the question I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Yeah, fine.
Because
See, it's called benchmarking.
yes.
If you know the price of maize all over the world,
Yeah.
and why it is so,
Yeah.
if you know the price of wheat, the price of potatoes all over the world, why it is so, it's easy. But when you talk of leadership, now, where is it? When you have NGOs attacking you, okay? And when you have your MPs attacking you, but they don't know these issues. But until you have a good discussion on this, it can cause a serious problem.
So your view is that we should start by having a sober discussion.
But we
on
have
how
the
to-
data.
Yes.
And you see, for instance, when milk was addressed, what happened? It overwhelmed Kenya.
It did. It did.
It even turned our situation.
Actually,
And-
the numbers that I looked at
Yes.
are putting us, I think it's South Africa now beating us in production of milk.
I was,
On
I was,
the
I was
African
in
Yes,
shock.
yes, yes, yes.
I was in
Which
shock.
means, in terms of potential, this country is really, really
Big,
blessed.
big.
What baffles me is that we can produce at the lowest cost of production
Yes.
in most areas.
Yes.
Yes.
All areas.
Exactly.
Even our west area is better than the best area in most countries.
Exactly.
Yes, yes,
So,
it's true.
in terms of looking for solutions, for instance, I mean, you talked about benchmarking.
Yes.
What can we learn from the dairy subsector, for instance?
Yes.
And-
And chicken.
Exactly. And
With eggs.
exactly. And then replicate it probably across board, like in the sector where you sit, the grains,
Yeah, with rice. We have done
and the others.
it. We have done it.
So, but then it again brings me, because I think the president kind of talked about it in his State of the Nation address. And I think it's also a point within the National Development Plan too.
Yeah.
Increasing production and productivity.
Yes.
Because I mean, this now talks about both qualitative and quantitative
Yes.
uplifting
Yes.
of the subsector.
Yes, yes.
How do we do that as a country? Because clearly, given the scenarios you're giving, we haven't done that. Otherwise,
No,
that
well,
rice from Vietnam
no,
wouldn't
well,
be competitive
we-
as competitive here.
We have
I'm
done-
told you're even importing fish from China.
Yes, yes. Because they have made it cheaper. That's why I talked of technology and organization.
Yeah.
You see, here it's still wild game fishing, like hunting.
Mm.
But there now it is like farming. With the
I
fish.
think that's a good
Yeah, no, but
that's
that is
a
what
good
it is. Yes.
Yes.
So it is. So we have to go to that.
Yeah.
The problem again is like when we wanted to do intensification,
Yeah.
whereby, you know, in Uganda, you can grow food in only one district and feed the whole of Uganda.
Yeah.
This is a fact.
Yeah.
And the rest goes for export. And I have data for that.
Mm.
Because, okay, like taking, for instance, tomatoes. Ugandans produce tomatoes at about 30 to 40 tons a hectare.
Okay.
India and Pakistan, India and China produce at about 300 tons a hectare.
Okay.
A hectare. Here is 30 to 40. There is 300.
Wow.
Netherlands and Israel is over 400 tons. Now 10 hectares is enough to feed Kampala for 1 week. So we can. But let me tell you, my brother, instead of going into these industrial processes,
Yeah.
all my colleagues are busy building houses in Muyenga and elsewhere and
Apartments.
buying cars,
Yes.
which would have gone into agriculture. All right? So when you talk of leadership, just say a cross section. And sometimes I think it is because all my friends, my age mates and so on, have felt that they have run away from the village, so they are better off. because the village is considered poor.
Yes.
So when you come to that's why I said it's a big issue,
Yes.
heavy. I've been fighting. Everybody was laughing at me when I was moving to Jinja. Said, you are running away from Kampala. Kampala has defeated you. I said, yes. But now they come to me.
They're coming to you.
No.
Julius,
Yeah.
what do you think because you sit within civil society,
Yeah.
and I know you also have tendrils within the private sector. How do we get our economy, to really optimize the God-given advantages that we have as a country, so that we see that, we're able to do the import substitution, we're able to increase production and productivity, and then be where we have to be as a country?
The first thing I think we need to do is to overhaul the way we plan and set priorities in this country. We must do that, and it's a painful process. because once you overhaul the planning and the setting of priorities, especially now that we have COVID, because COVID has taught us many lessons, then that will help us to move. Let me give you an example. You have industrial parks that are not functioning at 100%, but you want to build more industrial parks. It's not that industrial parks are not important. They are important. We know what they do. The ones we have are not up to 100% capacity, but we want to build more industrial parks. Why don't we invest in ensuring that the ones we have are up to capacity, project properly, and see when do we need the new ones? So duplication within our government system has led us to lose more resources. So we need to revamp the planning of and setting of our priorities, and say, since now these are the vulnerable, this is our real economy. How do we ensure that when we are pumping money in hospitals, for example, we will need to ensure that our hospitals have the capacity to deal with pandemics like these ones? Because when you come at that particular big picture, that particular level, that means that malaria, TB, these other smaller diseases, you can be able to deal with that because you have the capacity to deal with big issues like the pandemics. Look at SGR. Everybody wants SGR. It's very speedy railway. But at this moment, we can actually repair the existing one. And it will still serve us. True. We can actually build a cargo ship to connect Kisumu and Mwanza. And we still work perfectly and very efficiently. But because you have some people have already planned their stake on the SGR railway, pushing those kind of interests become a bit problematic. And that's why for me I say, let's revamp the planning and the setting of our priorities.
And get our priorities right.
And say, since food, because you can see what COVID has really brought us, it has shown us that Uganda, you are good at food production. Therefore, the effect of COVID-19 might not actually hit you more than what everybody of us was expecting. So why don't we therefore show that as everybody now is in this crisis, Uganda can serve food to the whole of the African continent? So to do that then requires us that, yes, we are good at, we shall ensure that we reduce the bill of vegetables and the potatoes we are talking about, produce them here at home and export them to where they
are needed. And
that one is our magic bullet.
Thank you, Julius. On that note, viewers, we'll take a very short commercial break. We are looking at the economic stimulus package as proposed by the president, and how this can actually, trickle down to the person down there. And that's an area where we're going to be focusing specifically, but only after this very short commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back, viewers. We're looking at the economic stimulus and what it should look like for the ordinary Ugandan. And that's the economic stimulus package that was suggested by the president. Actually, already determined and passed by the president. The one, we're talking about the 1 trillion that is injected in the Uganda Development Bank, of course, to support investment in this country. As you're aware, many businesses, if you actually ask a random question to any businessman, one of the challenges they will tell you they have is low access to affordable credit.
Yeah.
Now, and that's where I want us to start, Julius. Okay. How best can we make this work? Because it's not the first time that actually government is coming up with a stimulus package. It's only that concept is now becoming fancy, especially after 2008 financial crisis. We went into stimulus, and previously it used to have other names. Plan for modernization of agriculture, but people have Ntandikwa, money, and all that kind of thing. Exactly. So, how should we do this better this time?
Yes, I think one of the things is that let's ensure that that our small, medium, and I will keep on saying that our small and medium enterprises really access these particular loans. I have had an opportunity to interview some bankers, and I have got one shocking response, and which is very logical. I mean, Julius, why should we go to government to give us money to lend at a cheaper rate when I already have my own money that I can lend out at a higher rate?
You're saying some banks telling you?
Yes.
Some
banks tell you that. They said, no, I mean, we have enough reserves.
Yeah.
We can actually even borrow internationally, get money into the country, because this has got a market where I can sell at a higher rate. Because the bottom line for my company is to make profits. That is all. And as such is that you find that the small and medium enterprises cannot actually access that money. If you get into that, if you get that money, a friend told me, you are working for that bank.
True.
Any money you get for agriculture, for example, any other that is above the 12% margin, you are working for the bank.
You know you cooked.
Yeah, you are definite. You are dead
It's
from
a
the
formula.
beginning. It's a formula done that. So, if we say now we have to provide access to credit, I can tell you the magic bullet. Number one, we need to cap that. Yes, we have UDB. UDB must also be structured. They only have one branch in Kampala. So they need to deal with that. How do you ensure that somebody from Koboko would not have to send his loan application to Kampala? How do you ensure that somebody from Kisoro would not have to send his loan application to Kampala? They need to address that in terms of access. But second also is one of the ways they could work, UDB, is also to partner with the microfinance institution, our microfinance institutions, so that you provide them with this loan at an interest rate of 1-2%, and give them a cap and say, please, when you are sending out this money, giving out this money, it should not be below, it should not be beyond 10%. I know these circles will welcome that particular.
I think that's a very important point.
That particular idea, they would definitely grab it with two hands. Number one, for them, they have the structure on how to borrow this money. When even if you don't have a korato, they know, oh, you have 3 cows in your karar, you have 3 chicken in your karar, and they will give you that money. But also importantly is, these monies should not be huge monies. Let us not start giving out loans of billions and forget about these small and medium enterprises. We can say, please, those of 100 and below, yes, that's good enough, but probably concentrate on those micro loans. And maybe provide one for the bigger boys and the girls in the economic sector. If we do that alone, again, that is our magic bullet.
I hear you. Ambassador, how should we go from where you see things? How should we go about this?
There's another thing which we should not forget. I think what we need to do is do some what you call position assessments of companies, or auditing companies. Audit these business companies. You see, until you do a diagnostic of your company. Like for me, my company, every 2 years, I get an independent consultant to come and do a diagnostic. You may find that this year it is me who made the company not grow. Sometimes it's my staff. Sometimes it's the market condition. Sometimes it is the world condition. So one of the things is, I think we need to upgrade all our businesses by getting what they call diagnostic study of each company. Do you have a policy for staff? What's your marketing policy? What's your supply line? Do you have it properly registered? So that they are clear about what they are doing. It helps them to understand how to operate a business. Because most people go into a business as a casual manner or as a desperate manner. And then when they are told there's money, they go to borrow. But they really haven't understood their business. Because if you know your business, you don't have a problem. If you don't know your business, however much money you have a big problem in your hand. So while we need to do that, we need to seriously understand these operating units so that they can qualify for the loans. And then there are certain formulas, like the formula I use, which I learned from a Japanese company, is never borrow more than 25% of your assets. So that you grow every year by 25%, but it keeps on accumulating. But then there's very reduced risk if you have to borrow the 25%. So normally you find many of them borrowing 10%, and this makes it healthy, and you can sleep. There was a time I borrowed 30%, I couldn't sleep. So it was a big problem. So once you do this for the companies, it makes it easier. Secondly, I want to say that last year Africa imported $50 billion of food. $50 billion. So there is a market for Uganda to supply. What were these? Chicken, meat, milk, fish, rice, wheat, cassava. This is what was going on. But even us here, every day from Tanzania, we import 3 or 4 lorries of onions, which we can grow. So once you get a situation of the market, so that you are very clear of who to do what and how much it is, it becomes easy. Then it can prepare you to go to the regional market. So to study what the Sudanese are importing, what the Congolese are importing, what we import is a good start, so that the banks can start lending money for this, what you would now call import substitutes or export alternatives.
I get you.
And once that happens, it starts to change the dynamics.
The dynamics.
But this means the banks must also be open to so many other people, and you find that the banks here are generally closed. In 2012, I think, I was asked by Kilimo to
Trust.
do Kilimo Trust to do a study about banks. And do you know what happened? We went for a conference in Nairobi. I discovered that the banks are blind, because in the banking staff, they have economists, accountants as the staff. Because they don't have agriculture officers, they can't see agriculture as viable. But Centenary Bank and now DFCU took in a lot of agriculturalists. So they are not blind anymore. So they are the big lenders to agriculture, because they know its meaning. So part of these other issues, internal dynamics, are also very important to know, so that the farmers can beat him. After all, Uganda is an agricultural country. Is it an oil country?
No, it's not.
Is it a gold country?
Yep.
It's not an industrial country. So how can the banks then say it is not viable?
Anyway, and that's where we have leverage. Julius, all these happen in an environment. And here my interest is the economic environment under which these businesses are thriving. I've spoken to a couple of farmers who tell you that, especially those that are doing it commercially, who tell you that one of their main challenges is, the tax policy, towards agriculture. Of course, as you know, I think over the last 3 or 4 years or so, that's when we've started taxing certain activities within the sector. And sometimes rightly so, because, of course, if we say, for instance, that we've made it in the dairy subsector,
we should.
then I think it's time that we tax that.
Mm.
But then there are areas that need hand-holding.
Yeah.
I don't think that where Ambassador sits, the rice subsector, is at that level yet. And
Of which
yet...
one? Of hand-holding?
No.
Of
Of tax at the moment.
Oh, we have been fighting with the government.
Exactly. So what do you think of that? I mean, I don't want to bias your opinion on that, but how should we go about, of course, taxing those that should, while at the same time helping those that are at their infancy, for lack of a better word, to actually come up and do better?
And I think one of the things that around tax policy in this country has been, one of my biggest challenges has been, your objective is to tax. But you see in other countries, the objective of taxation is production. How can taxation policy help to produce more so that they can be able to tax you? And that's why you find that for them, their tax brackets, for example, the band was are different. If they can decide and say, if you are starting, I mean, your payee, for example, right now for us is at 200 plus something, they can say your payee should start at 500 and above. To give you more leverage. Your corporate tax, as you are starting, is lower than as you have advanced further. Those are policies that can help you expand taxation base, help you to increase production. So for me, it's just not only for agriculture, for example, but it's for all others, because it becomes a bit inhuman on my part that a student pays the same tax as his professor or her professor. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. Is that a student probably is not earning and the professor is earning, so you need to ensure that tax is proportional to what's being done. But I think, for me, my biggest problem when you talk about tax, it takes me to one of the biggest issues that we are facing. We are telling government, spend. Where is he going to get the money from? And if you look at the stimulus package, the president is also saying we are going to increase, make sure that VAT funds are paid very quickly. We are forgiving tax arrears. There is an idea about payee and everything else. Where is the government going to get the money to do all this work? And I think 2 areas must work out. Number one is we need to look at reducing our expenditure on those items we think that we should stop now and do later. Number 2 is, for me, is to borrow smartly. because our biggest challenge in this country is we go out and borrow when you are not yet prepared. And I always give you an example of my Mpiji Road.
Yes.
I mean, we have been paying interest payment on that road even when we have never dug a single trench on that particular road. So borrowing smartly, but also borrowing for ready-made project would help us. But the other part is improve efficiency implementation. When I go to my northern Uganda project, it's now 20 years down the road, the thing is not yet finished. We're not even seeing the sight of it getting finished. And now with COVID-19, let me tell you, it has found us at another bad level, to the extent that we don't have even to get out of this particular area. So we need to discuss how our treasury is going to attract resources. Because right now, I'm very sure that our PSST and treasury must be a very stressed man. Because it could be very empty, list. It could be very empty. So we also need to candidly talk about how we are going to manage all these good proposals, because they can be very good on paper. If we don't have the money, they just become hotel funds.
Ambassador, the issue of tax and inputs, because they are very close, inputs to the agriculture subsector. How should we look at that? Because you can't really talk about bolstering productivity if you don't have that extra support, coming in to help you here and there. I mean, we talked about the attitude and all that, but there's that environment under which you operate.
Yeah, the good thing is that we have been fighting, and most taxes on agricultural inputs are removed, including machinery. This has been very welcome, because we don't think that you should tax investment. You should tax profits. So this has come on very after a long struggle, and now if you look at the tax, I bought machinery recently for maize. I didn't pay any tax on it, but I pay on spare parts. It's not too bad, but I would like that also to be removed. I imported machinery and put up a building on this. So in the rice sector, we only pay tax, which we negotiated with government, on brown rice, so that the cost, as he said, which is cheaper to bring from China, goes up, and it gives priority to the local farmers to first sell, and then we can sell our imported tax, our imported rice.
Yes.
This was welcome, and we like such a situation to continue. But there are other areas where we think tax should not be. When you're processing local commodities, we pay a lot of tax on electricity in processing, so our electrical bills are unnecessarily high. I understand the issue, but it would be much better if we didn't pay tax, and then we could start exporting the rice. So, because Kenya imports rice, do you know how much? $1 million a day. I really would like our rice to be sent to Kenya. $1 million a day of import. That would change, just like milk. It will change the equation again.
Immediately.
Yeah, but we are still battling with some people who in Ministry of Finance think you must tax because money is coming in, not knowing that somebody had to invest that money first so that now it can come in.
Yeah.
I think even if they know, they have a problem of trying to achieve their targets, which instead of explaining properly, they may just accept because they think that's how I'll keep my job. But recently, I don't know what happened. You are but but because you have to be realistic with these things.
That's right.
To discuss. I'm not saying as a human being I like what happened to the individuals, but I think there was an error of that kind of thinking which caused the problem. Because now if we're going to really invite somebody, instead of buying a car, to go and buy a tractor, you have to have those incentives. And believe you me, if those incentives are made so big, you will see the difference. People will invest. Even if they were running away from their traditional poverty of home, they will now like to go home as investors, because that's the only thing. And I think in rice we have not finished our negotiations with government, but we have succeeded. I'm not sure of some of the other commodities, but I don't know of any that is being taxed at the moment. Commodity. That's why there was a rise in production. Yeah.
Actually, the President mentions that, again, in the State of the Nation address, he gave a very nice number, which I think has eluded us a lot as journalists. The number on the amount of money that agriculture-related merchandise brings into the economy. That's over $2 billion.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And he said about 49% of export merchandising actually sits within the agriculture sector.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Now, that is quite powerful.
Well, that's quite
Yes,
powerful.
And despite the many problems we've already talked about
Yes,
in the
yes.
sector, which means that despite that, the fact that the sector is more or less running in default mode in a number of areas, we're able to make that progress. And I would like here to pick your minds, beginning with you, Julius, before I come back to the ambassador, because we'd like to pick his mind, having been out there, in foreign service and the like. How do we get this sector into where the president wants it to sit, to be able to compete? Because where the president wants us is to be able to compete at a global level.
Yes.
Because if you talk import substitution, it means you make your commodities more competitive than the guys out there. How do we get there broadly? I mean, looking beyond even the stimulus package.
Yes, I think one of the things that we need to look at is one of the, I interfaced with a colleague from Europe. He said that European Union had come to Uganda to check whether actually our fish is fit for human consumption. And they did a spot check at one of our landing sites. And what they found out was that they found this guy with imputa dragging it in, in sand, throwing it on the pickup, puts caveira and slips on it, and then the pickup sets off. Or that is like you are harvesting is really the hunting part that he was talking about. I think one of the things is for us to invest in quality production to help our farmers understand that the way you are going to harvest your production, the way you are going to use quality seeds is quite important for you to be able to get the right amount of money. That's number one on quality production. Number two is we need to specialize in some areas. We just can't do everything. I think let us leave other things for other people and be good at that. And I have already said, however much we try to invest in vehicle production, in cell phones, in all the other things, we cannot beat the centuries and decades Japan has put, Taiwan has put, China has put in doing those things. But we just need 1 year to do things right in the beans, maize, wheat, rice industry, to be the best at our game. Nobody can beat us. So therefore that requires that we concentrate more investments in these areas where we are good at, the low-hanging fruits. Ensure that we have the right seeds supplied and at the right time. Ensure that our farmers are trained well on how to ensure that they will grow, produce. Now connect all this to our agro-processors, those who want to process, and also help them to ensure that what they are processing is what can be exported, that is what is needed in the outside market. Because for us Ugandans, I know we shall consume, but the ultimate part for us to benefit more is if we can export. And this not only goes for agriculture, even for other industries. If you are a carpenter and you want to produce a nice chair, and you want to export it to Dubai, to where they have no forest, what type of chair would you send there? Is this the one that is made for our primary schools for P1, a bench, and you are finished? Or you know that it needs some quite of vanishing, you need some skills. I was in shock when they told me that our welders are not the best. We had to bring welders to come and weld this oil industry. In my mind, I was like, but all these welders, what are they? They say, those ones, they can't even do anything. I'm like, really?
But they can be trained.
They can't be trained. So how do we invest in that to ensure that they can do the right job and we are able to export the right things abroad? Lastly, for me, is the question of market. I think one of the biggest weaknesses we have is to look for market for our producers. Looking for markets, and Ambassador, I think, will support me here, is also politics. How do you sit with the other president and tell him, by the way, I have 1 billion eggs, can I give you half? That is marketing.
And that's an important point, Julius. Because if you remember, I think it was about 2 years ago, or last year, when we had a bumper harvest in maize.
Yeah. And it went 200.
Aflatoxins.
Exactly. There were all those issues.
Killed by aflatoxins.
Exactly. But then also, the issue of markets also became another.
Yes, but you see, as a country, we need to know, for example, that we're going to have a bump harvest of maize. why don't we have the right storage? So that we buy during a bumper harvest and store. So when there is famine somewhere else, we are able to say, how can we go to Morocco and tell them, do you know what, we have too much milk? Instead of fighting with the Kenyans here, and we negotiate with Morocco and said, you know, we know you want more milk. I have milk, can we give you some? That's the kind of marketing strategy we need. And I think this requires serious marketeers at international level. Our ambassadors need to be equipped to do that, and we must go out there and look for markets. Markets can never come and find us here.
Yes. Ambassador, actually, before you come in, I
Yes.
know a couple of years back, government came up with a warehouse receipt system,
Yes.
especially for your area in grain. And I think part of the motivation was that, you know, because not every farmer or farmer group can build their own storage, for instance. For them to be able to have good storage and then benefit or avoid some of the problems like aflatoxins and the like. I don't know what happened, but we'll touch that a little later. How do we market? How do we get competitive? How do we produce and be, you know, at that global level?
Well, a few things we need to do in two phases. The first one is, do you know we have more cows than Germany? We have more cows than UK. We have more cows than Canada. We're very rich. But we're not making the most out of it.
Okay.
Because even Karamoja has 3 million cows. 3 million cows, more than Western Uganda. Western Uganda is 2.4. Rwanda is 1.3 million cows. So when you talk of that, what are you saying, you see, now? But not only cows. We have so many plants of different natures which the world doesn't have, which can make a big difference for perfumes. And when you talk of agriculture, we have never talked of perfumes or medicines, medicinal trees. All that is agriculture. We are still talking of maize and beans.
We've only missed with tolerance.
You said because I've been out there.
Yeah.
And these are the issues. So what are we doing? The issue is really our background. We have been so poor that we only talk of those things. And we think our national policy should be those things. That's why one of the reasons I can tell you being out there, we are stuck. Somebody comes from China, he wants some things, we don't see its use, he takes it for free. If we only knew that these are also what they want, it's money. You get what I am saying? So we have a lot of those, of which value we don't know because our background is beans and maize and potatoes.
And sweet potatoes.
So we have to accept that limit. And maybe get our botanists who are educated to come up and speak. We have our zoologists and all this to come up and speak. Maybe if that happens, we could have much more resources than we know.
Even the marketing function.
Yes, now when it comes to market like those things, they take them for free, but they have money for it. For instance, let me tell you, breeding snakes. You know some of these snakes, their venom are $1 million an ounce. If you really talk of money now in that sense. I know it, I was in China. And not just because they eat it, but also, but also because this is big medicinal investment, but available in the tropical countries. We're not taking advantage of those. So our agriculture is now becoming monoculture of crops, which the Europeans now no longer want because it has its zero. But yes, markets are functions of what you call efficiency and quality. Once the quality is good and you're efficient, it's okay. Right from the beginning, even during the British times, the tobacco, the coffee, the tea, the cocoa were quality products.
Sorry, I'll cut you short, Ambassador.
Yes.
We'll pick it from there.
Right.
Dear viewers, we'll take a very short commercial break here.
Right.
We are looking at the stimulus package that was proposed by the President in the State of the Nation address. And we're trying to see how can it trickle down to actually benefit someone at the grassroots, looking at, you know, where some of our key sectors like agriculture, manufacturing should be, because those are some of the areas that the President is looking at with this intervention. But we'll pick it from there after this very short commercial break. Dear viewers, welcome back to the show. It's a special edition of the show where we're looking at the stimulus package that was proposed by the president. And it's the 1 trillion shillings that was, proposed to be injected in the Uganda Development Bank to really support the economy. As you know, post-COVID-19, there will be a lot to deal with. We're already dealing with a lot. A number of businesses have gone under, others are struggling. And in anticipation of how things are going to look like, President saw it wise to actually have that injection made in Uganda Development Bank. So we're trying to look at how best can this be done, looking at the key sectors where this money is being focused at. Ambassador, we're talking about the marketing function out there. How do we, not just the marketing function, but how do we compete globally? But I want us to look at marketing as well, because the global dynamics, better, involve quite a lot. There's, too much that is involved out there. And as a country, we seem to have focused so much on the primary production side of things, because every time we talk about agriculture, most people think of farming and everything. We don't talk so much about the markets.
Yeah.
Well, the fact of the matter is actually on-farm activities, those are the farm activities of our peasants, is only 30% of agriculture. Yeah. There is the research which must take place to make that proper. There is the financing of it, there's the transporting, there's the processing, there's the distribution. So the equipment, seeds, all these are part of. So on-farm activities are 30%. 70% are other activities. And so you are right. Now, when the British brought here their coffee, tea, tobacco, and so on, we were doing only 30%. But the problem is the income remains at that level. The other levels of better processing or higher processing changes the equation. And that's where the difference is. Now, for instance, these clothes I'm wearing is less than a kilo. To the farmer, which is about 2 kilos of cotton, even if you paid him 3 kilos of cotton, you're paying 15,000 shillings. But how much is this in town? So you're talking about what? Even if you modestly say 300,000. So you are getting much more because of all those. So when you farm and remain at that basic level, that's the level they pay you. Now if you upgrade a bit, they pay you more. So even if you talk of marketing the produce, in the end, we have to go towards fulfilling things to the final buyer. But that means we must accept to learn those things we don't know, to buy equipment which is good enough to make sure that it goes to Europe and America. For instance, in real dynamics, because I'm a practitioner and I know this, most African small processings will add only $65 per ton. European, because of high level sophisticated equipment, and Americans will add $195 per ton quality. And people will buy. It is like you buy a kilo of meat, you take it to a window and eat it, you are paying 5,000 shillings a plate or 3. You take it to Sheraton, for 100 grams you are paying 50,000 shillings.
Yes.
You see what I'm talking about? So if we want mass market, that's what we'll get. If we want the other market, then we have to prepare ourselves to fit it in. So we lost the premium on our coffee because we strip coffee instead of picking coffee. We have lost our premium on tea because we don't put enough fertilizers, so our tea leaves are yellow instead of it being green, and we earn a higher market. So we're getting $1 something per kilo instead of $2.40. So all these things matter. So there is a market for everything, but we are messing up the product by not continuing the processing or starting it badly at the bottom, so we don't get. So, and you find the traders here will just go and buy and sell because he's not consuming, and he's, oh, I did my deal, and attitude messing it up. Otherwise, if we are really paying keen attention to these matters, my brother, I can tell you, the issues would be different. Very, 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 very different. And that would even be enough to change the equation. And until we do that, we are doing a disservice. Like in the rice sector, for me, if you go and buy rice, which used to be called kaiso, but now people have learned kaiso can be good, from the ordinary small mill, there are stones, there's rubbish. But if you bring it to a mill like mine or of my other colleagues, you blow it, you remove the wastes, and then you mill it properly, you remove the broken, we even now color sort, we even wash the rice before we pack. All that, then you get a price. Then we can now compete with the Pakistani rice.
I get you.
So these are the issues
That we need to address. I get you. Julius, coming back to you, of course the suggestions beyond that, the money that is proposed to go into UDB, there are also other funds, the Myoga Fund and the others, you know, to support these businesses. And for some reason, it seems especially the SMEs are smelling the coffee. In this COVID-19, we've had new industries emerging. I was again looking at the facts in the State of the Nation address. The President is talking about the fact that before COVID, we had 2 sanitizer manufacturers, Madivani's, Suraya, and another. Now, we're talking about over 100 players in that space. Then face masks and that kind of thing. So the problem, as we know from our history with Ugandans, not really the spirit to start business. But somehow we tend to lose it somewhere. How do we, and of course part of the problem is financing, but then it's much bigger, like we've already mentioned. But specifically looking at funding, how do we make these businesses really respond positively and optimize these interventions in case they really trickle down to the grassroots player, the SME or the micro operator?
Thanks. I think for me is COVID-19 brought an opportunity for these other companies to join the sanitizers industries. So the opportunity said, I can now churn, instead of building iron sheets, instead of producing alcohol, I can now organize my farm to tap into this opportunity. So how are we going to continue identifying opportunities even when COVID-19 is over? I think that should be at the mind of every planner, that should be at the mind of every policy maker. How do we ensure that the carpenter now here in Uganda is able to identify an opportunity either within his locality or outside the country? If it's outside the country, that should be the role of government. You know, I always wonder, when you see some presidents visiting other countries, they say, I've gone with a delegation of 300 businessmen and women. I'm like, what are they doing? The guys have gone to look for deals. So I think that's also something that we need to start thinking about. What is it in Egypt that we can take there? What does Egypt want? Is it something I can do it here? Yes, if it is, so what do I need? I know companies now definitely would need access to credit. Provide it. I know companies would like training in this one. Provide it. I know my companies really require the right inputs, the skills necessary. Let's provide that. That's what they call you systematically building your capacity to deliver on that particular market, which has been guaranteed. That's an opportunity for you to be able to do. So that's number one. Number two is, how can we ensure that this big brother, this big sister in this industry is connecting himself or herself to this micro person underground? That one is also very important. And with this COVID-19, I've experienced that. We've seen big suppliers of maize. You know, you want to win a contract to supply maize. Where are you getting that maize from? Which type of farmers are supplying you? And how are you helping them to grow? I think that is a gap that we have not addressed. So if you are, if you are, a carpenter and you are buying timber, how are we helping you to ensure that you also support the tea growing industry, the tree growing industry in a particular area, so that you are able to help those people who are planting trees? You work with them to ensure that when they are planting trees, they are planting the right trees, they know how to grow the trees properly. And I think that again is the role of government, to help say that this is our industry, we are specializing in this one, like how we are saying dairy is a good industry, we want to export milk, and as such we need to ensure that the whole production process is invested in. Do you want the machinery? There is no tax on it. Do you want the milk? Yes, we should help farmers to ensure that they get the right cows, they have the right acaricides, and also they can also do best practices to ensure that the milk they get from the cow reaches your factory still in good condition. So those are the kind of things you want that after in this economic stimulus, we should be able to focus on them. If you're talking about storage, you might have storage facilities that are actually not being filled by the farmers, simply because the farmers, their output is far, far less than the kind of storage that is there. So how do you help them to ensure that actually you can improve on your output to be able to store for better prices tomorrow? So that kind of mindset, if we don't get it, then we still do business as usual. And for us to get it, then we need to change the whole system, the way we do work with our farmers. It's not a question of getting seeds and we dump them at your gate. If you don't want them, it is a question of knowing what you want, and then we provide it, follow it up with extension service to ensure that you bring it, you produce what is right for the market.
Very good. Ambassador, you know, every crisis sometimes presents opportunities. And there are some that have come with COVID-19. Like for the sanitizer business, the face masks and the others. How do we get our act together as a country to take advantage of, you know, the opportunities that are likely to come with the new realities after, in the post-COVID-19 era that we are entering?
But basically it's dialogue, because you see, the example I understand of COVID is like, you have lost a job. Are you going to do the same budget like when you were working? I think you are not. Or if all of a sudden somebody gives you $1 million a day or $1 million shillings a day, your budget changes. So this just makes Ugandans realize that, hey, there's a situation which we must seriously look at. And that can only be when you realize that everything is connected. I am a practitioner. And I can tell Julius here that what he's saying, we are doing it in the value chains. And he's talking about the government intervention, where there are people who haven't quite come into the value chain on a commercial basis. But when you are a miller of rice, if you don't know your farmers, you're in trouble. If you don't encourage them, you can't grow. It's the same with coffee. And I can tell you, for instance, our coffee, the Ugandan coffee farmer has been producing 500 grams of coffee per tree. Now we have gone to that detail. We have pushed some farmers now to 5-7 kilograms per tree from 500 grams. Brazil is 30 kilograms per tree. Now we know that detail because this is what affects the business.
Totally.
So we are saying each farmer in Uganda should also have coffee that gives you 20 kilograms per tree. And if you give him 6,000 shillings per tree, per kilo, or even 4,000, then you know how much he's getting per tree. Then he can say, okay, in my 1,000 trees, I can get so much. This is where we are going. You get me?
I hear you.
And because of COVID, we have to make this loud and clear so that we can know exactly where our, you know, we look at the margins. We don't look at the gross thing, we look at the margin. So where the margins are. And if COVID is going to continue to make this, that is it. Because some people were asleep. We used to talk about these things. Because me, I need it. And the farmer needs it. But somebody sits elsewhere and he says, what's going on? You are cheating farmers. You don't even know where. I wish they could go and talk to my farmers. Oh, you are cheating us in the market. Casual talk. Okay? So we like COVID because it has made everybody wake up to us. And I must say, I was very grateful when I had UDB get that lot of money. It's definitely not enough, but it's a good beginning.
It's a good start. Yeah.
It's a good start. Whether UDB has the capacity to implement it or not, but that's a good start.
You have to begin somewhere.
Who has never made mistakes? I never got 100% in school all the time. Sometimes 30%, 70, 80. Why do I think government, oh, my friend Mukunda, should be 100%? Where does that exist?
Thank you, Ambassador, for that input. On that note, viewers, you can be part of this discussion. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, we'd like to hear from you. We'd like to really make you part of the discussion. Julius, going forward as civil society, because, you know, again, going to the State of the National Address, but before you come in, maybe let's speak the mind of this. Please give us your name, question or suggestion. Hello?
Am I to end me?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, please give us your name or question or comment.
I'm Peter, calling from Turkey.
SAS.
I just hear comment.
Sorry, Vincent, your line is breaking. You're not very clear. We'll now take another caller. Please give us your question, comment, or suggestion. Hello?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. Sorry?
I'm getting you so that I'm getting.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. We seem to have a bit of a challenge with the lines. We can't hear you quite well.
I think the line has got COVID.
Yeah. Well, but we'll still give a chance to another caller. Your question or comment? Hello? Oh, sorry. We've lost that caller. But I still have, maybe it's because of the numbers. Your question, another caller. Oh, okay. I think we have a challenge with the lines.
Yes,
But the drop calls are really very frequent.
They are very high because I think people are using more and more phones.
Yeah.
So it's overloaded.
Okay. We have another caller. Question or comment?
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm glad to hear about your discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. But now my main question is what the ambassador mentioned of that business of rearing those snakes. How can someone get more information about that? Is it so costly? Can we be trained on how to rear those snakes from, say, you mentioned that they get venom and they are generating some good money from that?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And if I'm also interested, how can I be part of the group just in case they can train us?
Thank you. Your name? Okay. Ambassador, I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, venoms. Okay, that's all right. You get your name, but for purposes of information.
Before you come in, Ambassador, sorry, let's get the calls. I have another caller. Question or comment? Hello? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is Charles Opolis. My problem with our government is most of the intervention of the president. How do we measure? There's no evaluation of what is their timeline. When you can pay, when the domestic career can be paid, when the funds can be done, and secondly, who is going to implement those directives that the president talked about? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Viewers, once again, you can be part of the discussion. We still want to hear from you. Yes, another caller, your name and question.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Good evening. Please give us your name and question.
Hello?
Yes, Bekunda, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to Bekunda. I'd like your discussion.
Thank you.
You have now reached to the common man, and I think if such discussions are held and all people flock to them and get involved in production from the lower level, we can see our country growing up. I think some of us are going to get in touch with the people in the studio
so that we also get involved in production and push Uganda forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Vekonda. Thank you very much.
You.
Yes. Very quickly, Ambassador, you were tackling that question, but maybe we can have one more caller because my producer is telling me his line is buzzing.
Yes.
Yes, your question or comment? Hello? I think we've lost that one. Ambassador, you can go on.
Thank you. Regarding the snake venom, it's not just the snake venom. All wildlife in Africa and all the plants have got very important characteristics for both human beings, either as medicines or as food or as parasitic substances and so on. So it is very, very important. We value our wildlife because it is based on that a lot of solutions in the world is coming. There is now what they call green chemistry, whereby instead of making something like a glass for one use, the green chemistry says after its use, it should not be dangerous. So what do you do with it? So that now the cost of disposal is reduced.
Yeah.
So this is the new science that's going up. And a lot of it is looking for plant material and animal matters to solve. So as such, these snakes are just one part of it. To say that we have not in our evaluation of wealth creation looked at all our assets, but we have focused on a few. But in particular reference to the snake venom, I think I will have to make an arrangement because this has not been an industry that has grown much here. But I will take it up with the Makerere University Department of Zoology. They can always help you to find out what is required. But even if you go to Wandegea, to the government chemists, we can help you to network with the people who are doing research in some of these fields.
I hear you.
And that's very important.
But you see that the broader issue is you have all these opportunities. Very few people know about it.
Yeah.
And I think my friend Wakakamba should be listening to this. That Uganda Investment Authority, I have seen that they have got project profiles actually, that please come to Uganda, invest in fish, invest in this. Those project profiles they need to go to everybody, not only targeting foreigners, but also the local investors here and be able to do that. The other issue was measuring the timelines on what the president is doing. I think we're waiting for the Minister of Finance now to give us the details because the president just gave us the broad items. I think the minister should give us the details. And after that, then we should begin to demand when are all these things happening. Thank you so much, Bekunda. And I think for me, one of the things that really drives me is to say, please, this country is not driven by the big boys and girls. Yes, they are doing some work, but it is being driven by the small scale and medium enterprises. And once, if we concentrate on that one, it's going to be our magic bullet. That's what I've been talking about.
I get you. I get you. Ambassador, we are nearing the tail end of our discussion. From what you see, I'd like to know what would you want to leave our viewers with, given the realities we are dealing with at the moment?
Well, you see, all conditions require different thinking and assessments. Business can be in times of peace, manufacturing, transport, and all this. But even in war, there's business, supplying guns, bullets. You're also taking people to the hospital to treat, making people escape. It's a different kind of business. So there is no time in this world where there is no business. So as a true business person, you should know that all conditions have a specific business. So you must adapt. Now, COVID has come. It's not that we are taking opportunity alone to make business bigger, but it is also questioning how the old business should be more efficient. And then we grow. So I know the human beings are very adaptive and very resilient, so we shouldn't be afraid. All we need to do is, as Churchill said, stand up together, stand up straight, and in one go. Then you are so strong, nobody can disturb you, including COVID. Thank you.
A message to the grain people.
My grain people, there is, Kenya wants Kenya consumes 45 million bags of maize, coming back to maize. And I think they have only 19 million bags this year. So there's a shortage of over 25 million bags of maize. We have a business deal, but if there is aflatoxins, then I'm sorry, there is nothing. So please continue working with the farmers to make sure that we can give the Kenyans our 8 or 10 million bags of maize. And
Julius,
then we make some money for these farmers.
I hear you.
Yeah?
Thank you. Thank you. Julius, your last word.
Mine are two issues. One is I'm calling upon Ugandans, whether you're a small business person or you're a farmer, please look out. There is money that is coming to your sub-county. See how it is being utilized. It is your money. Please be vigilant to find out how that money is being utilized. There is nobody from Kampala who's going to see how your health center or primary school is functioning, or if that borehole has not been functioning. The second one is for me to the policymakers and even to our president, is that it's high time we recognize the importance of the small and medium enterprises in this country. That an ordinary man and woman in this country needs support. And we should prevent the vultures, I call them vultures without hesitation, who now are ready to jump on all these small monies that they have given and just wipe it almost completely. That please think about that carpenter, that saloon lady, that market vendor, even the border person. Let's think about those ones so that we can be able to get out of COVID without much damage.
I get you.
I thank you.
Yes. On that note, actually, that small person, we tend to think of investors in this country as people of a certain color, not the other. But I hope that is going to change this time going forward. And next week, we are looking at the budget. What are your expectations, by the way? Because we know nowadays, okay, much as in the past, of course, we were kept in the dark always. We didn't know what was in the budget. Nowadays, it comes, but sometimes it changes. There are those final...
Yeah, those final things. That, I mean, the minister said it during the parliament. And by there's something I have also would like to appreciate the government.
Yeah.
They have listened. I think this is really completed from what they used to do.
Yes.
You would tell them, guys, the things are apart. They say, don't worry, we shall get there. But now they know the situation is not good. They have listened. A few times we have met the PSST, said, please, we are listening. Even if it means printing money, it is on the table. Let us discuss the pros and the cons. Bring everything on the table and we look at it. And I think the minister should also be thinking in the same line. So I'm expecting surprises, actually.
I hear you.
Yes.
Well, let's wait for that. Probably agriculture would be one of those.
I wish. Because you see, Africa imports so much food that really agriculture should produce more food, but we keep it well, store it well. Like you remember Joseph in the Bible? He made sure for 7 years they produced a lot of food, but they were well stored. So when the lean years came, they had enough. So for this reason, it's important we work with all those who are producing food, make sure there is enough storage so that we can export to these African countries.
Because the seasons have, I mean, the rains have been kind to us.
Yeah, but now I'm told in the West it has been very dry. Parts of Luengo, West Nile, it is getting very dry. For 2 weeks it hasn't rained and it is cold.
From January we've been having
But we have been having a lot of rain, yes.
And last year.
So it's very unfortunate that this short break. But otherwise it was really going to be. But there's still a lot of good things.
Well, we'll be looking forward to more good things. And I think there are a couple of things that need to be looked into. And I'm sure someone is looking into those. Thank you, viewers. This has been a special edition of the show where we're looking at the stimulus package that was announced by the president. And of course, those interventions to support business and what these should actually mean to the person at the grassroots. I've been your host, Charles Boji, and with me in the studio was Julius Mukunda from CSBAG. These are the guys who really monitor the budget and see that the promises are actually actualized and met. And then we've had the privilege of having Ambassador Philip Idro from the grain and rice people, I should say. Ambassador, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the show. Viewers, until next time, have a good evening.